Give me 1 second. No, it's not letting me back in there. Let's try this again. There we go. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let me, like I'm trying to pull it up here. Okay. Sorry about that. And I even practiced it, so I'm not sure what's going on with it. It'll just take me a second. Okay, there we go. I apologize. I'm not sure why it's not allowing me to share my screen. And we literally just practiced it.
We did just share that. Let me make sure there's nothing here on my side.
I think. Now let me give it a try.
We are the world.
I don't know if that was on there.
There we go. Can you see it now?
All right, Houston, we have liftoff.
Oh, thank goodness. All right. Took a hot second, so I apologize for that. Let me go ahead and get that started. All right. First of all, I want to thank everyone for joining me this morning. I really appreciate it. Donna Patrick, the cosmetology teacher, she wanted me to also thank you. She apologizes for not being able to be here today. Hopefully I do her justice talking about both ends of that. Let me see here. So Donna and I work very closely together. We feel like the students are more engaged because we are creating projects that relate to her cosmetology. So in my class, they focus on the writing, the presentation parts, and in her class, then, of course, the lab part, the hands-on. One of the first things that we do, and I feel that it's really important, is it's a cosmetology digital autobiography. And so this is a great way to get to know students. The juniors will present their presentations to the seniors, and the seniors will present to the juniors. So it's a great way for both of the classes to get to know each other. And it's one of my favorites because, and I also do one of me, and Donna will do one of her, because we want to show students that we're more than, just the teacher. We have lives outside of class and whatnot. This is what we have as a low risk assignment. So I don't know if you can see like some of the questions there, but the seniors will talk about what they had done in the summer for their to get their hours, right? So they'll talk about internships, but then they talk about who they are, and they can share pictures and whatnot. It's a great way for me to kind of gauge their comfort level with presenting. I also call this a low risk assignment because I don't grade for grammar. I really just kind of want to know, like, I can look to see how great they are with technology, what their writing skills are, if they have issues with presenting. With our junior class this year, we discovered that several of our students were very nervous. One of them wanted to drop out because of this assignment. They felt very uncomfortable presenting. So one of the things I love is empowering students. So we discussed what we could do to make it better. The students had, I suggested maybe they create a video, they can do a voiceover. And some of those students decided to do that. It's been small stepping stones, but this is a great way to really get to know my students. Like I said, they get to introduce each other or introduce themselves to each other. And sometimes I'll even go back to those slides, to those presentations, to get ideas for projects in class for students not. Now, one of the things that I really enjoy doing, first of all, and I should have created a slide for this, but Donna has me in her Google Classroom. So at any point, I can see what those students are working on. But I will also say we meet quite often. So when I get the chance, I will go over to the cosmetology lab and we can meet. I can also see what the students are doing. But the biggest thing has been able to connect to her Google Classroom so I can see. Each year, well, this is probably our third year, we started doing e-portfolios. And this is something that I absolutely love. So when I introduce the e-portfolios, we talk about pictures for those. And I'm going to show you an example here in a second. But I found these awesome articles, and I think I had the link in there. So we have issues with students in social media, and what is appropriate, what is not appropriate. So I pulled up the one over to my left, well, and also to the right. These sites had examples of bios with pictures. I pulled that up and it was this huge list, right, of different people, and they were all cosmetology related. So we had this discussion about what each person looked like in these bios with their picture, with their headshot. Great discussion. It was amazing. Students were really hard at critiquing each individual, discussing why they thought they would go to that person, why they wouldn't go to that person. We discussed what they had in their bios. From that presentation, from that class discussion, the students came up with the idea of having a day where they could take professional pictures. Well, it happened to be February 14th, and the students wanted to have a party. Mrs. Patrick said, of course, no, we can only, they're pretty strict about that. But she said, why don't we have a photography session? You can come in dressed up and we will take pictures. We'll do the professional pictures that we can use for your bios. It was outstanding. Like, the students did such a great job. They looked professional. They received permission to get some of these pictures outside, or, for example, one was in the library. It was so successful that we plan on doing it again. And that is something that, working with Mrs. Patrick and the students, because it was their idea, it turned out to be very successful. These are two examples that I absolutely love. One of the students, the one on the right there, is one of the, and she said it was okay to talk about this, but she did not like presenting. She was one who was ready to leave my class. Like, she was ready to go to the guidance and be done with that. And she has really blossomed through this whole process. In fact, we do Lean Six Sigma, which we're going to talk at the end. She has agreed with her team to go and present about her Greenbelt project. And she was talking yesterday, we were working on our Greenbelt projects, and she was talking about how she would never have done anything like that ever before. So it kind of goes back to that first thing that I was talking to you about, that digital portfolio. We start with small steps and work, those tiny steps each way to help students gain confidence. But you can see they look very professional. They did a great job. Let me see here. Here's another one who's just really excelled. The e-portfolios, and I want to say this before I get sidetracked, but the e-portfolios, I feel are very important. They they mimic the social media, but it's teaching students how to use those appropriately. And in the e-portfolio, we use Google Sites, so it's free. So it's something that when they leave school, they will know how to use, and they can use it for their businesses and also to, show others what they can do. But in the portfolios, they will have a page for nails, a page for hair, a page for makeup, a page for perms. They will have their resume on there. They'll have their references on there. They also get a little bit of creative leeway. When I was living in Florida, when I was searching for a new hairstylist, there's a gentleman that had an e-portfolio, and he included a page of watercolor. He loved painting watercolors. Happens that I do too, and I picked him because of that. So they can also include a page of their outside interests, whether that be sports, music, painting. So the e-portfolio has a whole lot of different components to it. Let's see here. Another project that we do is called the Instructables. And I absolutely love this. So I had gone to Mrs. Patrick, and again, I think between the two of us, we have great communication and we really build off of each other. So I gone to her, and a long time ago, I taught at Meg's High School several years ago. And one of the things, and I had cosmetology students then too for English. And one of the things that we did were demonstrations, and I love that. So we would go to the lab and they would demonstrate, you know, something that they really enjoyed doing. So I was asking if, you know, if she wanted to do something like that. And she had taken one of her master's classes. She just completed it, and they did this Instructables. And it was awesome. It was far better than doing the demonstration in class. See here. So in our class, they did the writing for that. But then, and as I had mentioned before, in cosmetology, they would actually do the steps, do the like the pictures, the video. And I have a link here. I'm going to try to show you an example of one of our students' Instructable. This is something that they can also include in their digital portfolio. So this can be live. She can make this live. And this was done by one of our students. So you can see she decided to do hair braiding. It looks absolutely beautiful. And if you scroll down, she has the steps, the supplies that are needed for that. And this would be a great way to show employers, you know, what she can do. Like, this is just wonderful, right? And like I said, this is something that could be added to her e-portfolio. And then she has her video there. But again, great skills, technology skills, things that the student can take with them once they graduate. You know, one of the things that I'm a firm believer is that projects have to be connected, and you have to have student buy-in, right? So they know why they're doing this, they understand why it's important, and they will be more mindful of grammar, right? And of the pictures that they're taking. I know Mrs. Patrick, when we've done this presentation before, you know, even blurring out the backgrounds, right? So there's a lot of lessons that go in this. And you can see it really makes the braiding, this mannequin, stand out. But she also, you know, she talks about not having clutter, or, you know, making sure that you're mindful about what those backgrounds are. I feel like I'm talking really fast, so I hope that I'm not. All right. Now, something else, like I said, I really try to think hard about what are things that I can do in my English class that will help out my cosmetology students and really make connections with what Mrs. Patrick is doing in the classroom. We do it every other year. So the juniors and seniors go together, but we go to the Ohio Theater to watch the Nutcracker. And we even had someone say, well, what in the world does that have anything to do with cosmetology, right? Well, it has a whole lot to do with cosmetology. You've got stage makeup, the hair, it's all applicable. So they did several different readings about the Ohio Theater and the Nutcracker. And then in the Google, or in the cosmetology, they were learning about stage makeup. They were learning about doing hair for theater, even nails, like this Nailifies inspired by the Nutcracker. The students had such a great time, and it was such a wonderful project. And then as a reward, the students were able to go to see the Nutcracker at the Ohio Theater. And, you know, this made my teacher heart really happy, but I saw one of our students literally pointing up at the chandelier and then telling facts about the Ohio Theater and about that chandelier. My heart was so happy. So again, being able to connect the English with the cosmetology. And I mean, it was a great time. And then we were able to take the students out to eat afterwards. You can see here, they're enjoying the performance. So I mentioned connecting to Mrs. Patrick's Google Classroom. There's, you know, just recently she was doing a lesson on perms. Well, she told me that the students weren't excited about doing perms. They did not feel like that was popular, that it was really, you know, going to be something that they would do. And so I started thinking about that, and I decided, usually I'm finding the articles, right? These are some that I found that we had read in class and had discussions about it. But with the perming one, I had them get into small groups and they had to find articles, and then they had to do presentations. So they got into their groups and they could choose, you know, the leader or whatnot to present what they found. And again, we're going back to those tiny steps, getting students comfortable with being up front and being able to talk. And they got super excited about it, and they realized they can make a whole lot of money doing perms, especially with males. Like males, I guess, really enjoy doing perms. But you can see these are some of the articles that we read in class. Shakespeare, believe it or not, we could connect Shakespeare to cosmetology. We have one of the witches there to the right, and they love doing these. I have 100 of these heads, just so you know. And then we have Anne Boleyn. You can see where she, you know, they did the, I don't know if you can tell here, but where her husband, Henry VIII, had, you know, had her killed, right? Chopped her head off. So this was the first time I had one of the students focus on her, and I thought they did a great job, but they really enjoyed it, and especially showing off what they've done with the makeup. This is a new site that I started using. Vocabulary is huge in cosmetology, and they had a whole lot of technical terms that they had to memorize. They were getting, you know, I just really got tired of the paper, trying to do things like that. So I found this website. It's Educate, and anyway, it's also connected to AI, which I absolutely love. So all I had to do was just take their vocab words, the definitions, I copied that. I was able to use the AI that they had, paste those words in there, and it creates all of these different games. So it's not just that they're sitting there trying to use a note card, you know, with the definitions on one side and the word on the other, or doing worksheets. It was a whole lot of fun. And like I said, it had several different games on there that the kids could do, and it was very interactive. And we plan on using it again next year. This is a free site. However, I did the paid version. You can do, because I really enjoyed the AI. I'm always really busy, so I'm always trying to do new things every year. I'm always changing it up. Our students are new, so you got to figure it out, right? So I'm always trying to step it up. But we did pay for the program just because I really enjoyed the AI and just being able to paste those words in there and then pick whichever game that I wanted. So here's an example of the resume that we do in class, and the cover letter. So the resume, it's a template that I created in a Google Docs. And if anyone would if you would like a copy of that, I'd be more than happy to share that with you. It took a little bit of time. But anyway, all the students have to, and like I said, it's in a Google Docs. All they have to do is just click on, you know, the section, and they can add whatever. When they put that in their e-portfolio, this is the best. It's a live link, right? So when they update that and make changes, it's updated, and the changes are also seen in their e-portfolios. And I almost forgot. I can't believe I was going to forget this. So another thing that we do is I teach the students how to create a QR code, and they will put that right on their resume. The biggest thing with the e-portfolios is, not just showing students the appropriate way to present themselves, right? When they're out there trying to get jobs. But I'm a firm believer, for example, if you have two people interviewing and maybe they're equally as good, maybe the person even does a little bit better job than you with interviewing, right? Maybe it's not that other person's any better than you, but maybe they're a better interviewer. I believe in showing, not just telling, but also showing. So if they have the QR codes on there, it can take the interviewer straight to their e-portfolio. And then all of a sudden they can see on the student's e-portfolio what kind of hairstylist they are, how they do with nails, how they do with hair cutting, hair coloring, whatever that skill is. And then I also feel it's important to do the cover letters. Also in this lesson, we teach how to email. You would not believe how many times students, they don't know how to send a professional email, right? Especially if they're communicating with an employer or whatnot. And so we will do this, and then I will also have them, let me see if I can't remember. I don't have it on there. So one of the other things that they do is we find real jobs. So they can get online, they can use the newspaper, but they will find an actual job posting, and then they have to do the cover letter based on the job that they found, and we kind of go through and mimic those steps. Volunteering is near and dear to our heart. I'm just going to throw this out here. Last year, I was a skills advisor. Our students won a presidential award for volunteerism. And so I am a firm believer in connecting students to the community. With this one, students, you would think, well, okay, the students are giving haircuts to stand down for homelessness to our veterans who are homeless, right? Well, how in the world does that apply to English? Like, what is Ms. McCullough doing in her English class? Well, what we do is we focus on soft skills. These students are nervous, right? All of a sudden, they're going to have, and this group, I chose this picture because that group was outstanding. We talk about our veterans. We talk about why it's important to just not say thank you, but to step up and help when they're needed, right? So we discuss all kinds of skills. So how to listen, how to talk to that veteran, how to read body language. Some of these veterans have PTSD, and being alert, being present in that moment and paying attention is really huge. The other and going back to those bio pictures, what message are you sending when you're standing there in front of that veteran? Mrs. Patrick, there's only one of her. She might have 15 kids out there, and if one kid needs help and you're standing there and you're like, Mrs. Patrick, I need you, that doesn't help, right? So, or if a student is nervous about something the person has asked them to do with a specific haircut and they're not exactly sure, we talk about what's the appropriate way of handling that. It's not, oh, I have no idea what I'm doing, you don't want me to do that. There's a right way to handle things, and learning to be patient. And I get to go and I'm helping to seat the veterans and making sure everything goes really well, but it's awesome. And these students really had it together, as soon as, and here's the other thing, students can sometimes pause, right, when they're nervous. And so I told them, as soon as a veteran comes, or, because this was us to anyone, right? So as soon as a person comes up and they're wanting a haircut, you can't just stand there and look at them, because they can read that you don't want to help them. So the big thing was, as soon as someone comes in, and you don't have someone, even if you have finished and you're tired, you still grab that person and get busy and really make them feel like a star while they're sitting there in that seat. Oh, and I almost forgot. There was one situation, I was so happy that we had gone through all these different scenarios, but we unfortunately had a, a female who, this woman who had lice. And we had talked about that, not freaking out, not embarrassing that person, but what do you do? So we had discussions about that. And because of that, and unfortunately, the person had lice, the student was so professional. She immediately recognized that the person had lice. She just, put her utensils down and she came over and talked to Mrs. Patrick. Luckily for us, there was a tent to help people who might need help with something like that. So then the student escorted the person over there, and I mean, handled herself very professionally. I was really proud. As I had mentioned, I love our veterans, I really do. And this lesson actually it stemmed in Florida. I had a small group of girls that were working on a research project, and they did it on the WASP, the Women Air Force Service pilots. And they found Bee Haydu, who I absolutely love. She flew planes during World War II. She was 93 at the time. And those students emailed her. She emailed back. Eventually, we ended up driving. It was 3 hours. We drove to her house. The girls interviewed her for this research project. Well, when I came to Ohio in 2015 to teach at Pickaway Ross, I thought, I'm not letting B go. We're going to do her book in class. So we did some reading. And this page right here, they've got the turbans on, right? Urban's turbans. The girls had a discussion about that. At first they were like, why are they having to cover up their hair? What is going on with this? And so, and through that discussion, they decided, well, maybe part of that was safety. You can tell that they were not ready for women to serve. These are men's outfits right here, right? So a lot of times they're just way too big. So from that, the students decided to do this. So this is how we took another lesson and applied it to cosmetology. They decided to do a decades project, and it was outstanding. So in these decades projects, 40s, 50s, 60s, throughout the decades, right? Students picked a decade, and then they were able to do some of the hairstyles. They were also on Spectrum News, and the students got to show off their hairdos. It was amazing. We had a whole lot of fun. We did a whole lot of reading. So we have other books over here. These are some of the mannequin heads that they worked on. But it was one of, again, empowering for students. So they got to try out some of these hairstyles. They got to dress for the day. And then I'm not sure if I think I'm good on time. One of the last things that I want to talk about is Lean Six Sigma. Now, when you think cosmetology and English, you wouldn't necessarily think of Lean Six Sigma. So if you're not familiar with that, this is problem solving, right? So companies all over the world use Lean Six Sigma to figure out problems and how to take care of those problems. And it's focused on the DMAIC, which is define, measure, analyze, improve, and control, right? To figure out solutions to problems. This is going back to, I really appreciate things that have meaning to students. It's connected beyond the classroom. But for here as well, students can also earn points towards graduation, like yellow belts, 3 points, green belt, 6 points. And they learn these problem-solving skills throughout the process. Let's see here. We began by first discussing, okay, so I kind of jumped ahead here. So we go through yellow belt, and I had a yellow belt slide to show you, and I think I forgot to put it in there because it would have been before this one. But anyway, we do yellow belt, and in yellow belt, we have this company is actually a real Lean Six Sigma problem. It was Mamma Mia's Pizzeria, right? And so the students kind of go through the process of figuring out what the problems were, picking the problem that would, be the best solution to their problem. So they have to work through all of that. And I'll show you an example of that here in a second. But then the students, we all gathered together. That's Mrs. Patrick on the left, and I'm kind of back there in the way back there. And the students, we start discussing, what are great Greenbelt projects. Some of those are cosmetology related, but not all of them. So that for this one, and like I said, some of these students, whether they're going to own their own business, whether they are when they work at a salon, these are all skills that they can use to help figure out problems and get solutions. So here we're all together in the cosmetology lab in the classroom part of that, discussing what good Greenbelt projects look like and what they don't look like. Here the students are working on the SIPOCs and fishbone charts. Let's see here, I think I got this. And so they are assigned small groups, 4 or 5 students each. They have to identify a team leader. They have to decide for like the cosmetology ones, Mrs. Patrick would be listed as the champion, and I would be the coach. And so they go through the strategies after they decide, okay, this is a problem we have identified, or maybe we have a couple of problems, which one's going to be the better one. Once they do that, then like I said, they start going through those steps to figure out how to, solve those problems. So they'll do the define, and then they, they're responsible for answering these questions. They measure the problems. So they have to also collect data. Well, let's see. And I have, like I said, I have an example one that I can show you, but data is really important in the Lean Six Sigma. And then once they collect their data, they're analyzing that, then they work to improve that, and then how they can keep those improvements. And also, what could they have done differently? And so here you see the fishbone to my left, and then the SIPOCs there to the right. And I really love it. And again, going back to students who may feel embarrassed or uncomfortable presenting, these small groups really help students to start stepping out of that and gaining confidence. Okay, let's see here. Oh, here it is. So this is one that was done in cosmetology, and you can see they've got their project purpose, organizational impact. I took their names off there. And then their metrics, like I said, they have to gather data. A lot of times students will use Google Forms to collect information. They either send that out, to the whole school. It might be to staff. It depends on the problem. And then they're analyzing that data. And then they have to include their fishbone and their SIPOCs. And here you can see that they are, identifying the problem and possible solutions. One of the things that we do is that they have to vote on those solutions. Not everyone is always going to agree on which solution or even which problem to go with. So they have to learn to work as a team to figure out, what is going to be the best. Maybe it's not the one that you pick. The other thing I like about this, through those steps, each student has a voice. So it's not one student, doing all the talking. It's not one student figuring out the problem. It's not one student coming up with solutions. So they'll actually do a forum where they're voting on, is this easy to implement? And will this, work once they do that? And you can see here the students decided that the storage room there was awful, right? Like they were having trouble when they needed to get maybe a perm or get nail things. It was not easy to get. There were other teachers' things in there. And so they said that they needed to clean that up, right? This is, in order to make things run a little bit smoother and you can access things a little easier. And then, they also have to discuss what did they learn in this process and how they plan on, like once they leave, they want that to continue, right? So then they discuss how they can make that happen. I'm going to stop sharing, maybe. I think that was my 40 minutes. I know we got a couple of minutes late. How am I doing on time? Do we have time for questions, or did I think
you're right now, you're at about 39 minutes. So I think I'm really impressed, Tia. I've worked in a career tech lab for a long time, and cosmetology is a tough area. I really like the way that you've embedded, things that are benefiting both you from the language arts component as well as the cause, to make it so that we're not doing something in addition to, we're complementing what needs to be done anyways.
Absolutely. It becomes it's more meaningful, right? So those skills, like any of the projects that we do, they change every year. And we're constantly adding and making improvements on those. But the bottom line is for students who, I want them to be able to have these skills when they leave and not just use it for the classroom. So it's very rare to do something that ends in, in a class period and then we're done and we move on.
Right.
It's not like that.
Tia, when you were talking about some of the things that are in their e-portfolios, are any of those able to be used as any of their CTSO competitions?
Actually, yes. Like for the interviewing, right? So they do the interviewing. I think that I'm trying to think. I know with interviewing, they have to have the resume and whatnot. And like I said, being able to show rather than just say, than to tell what those skills are, I think is huge. I don't know our cosmetology students, because I'm trying to think, I don't think any of them have gone that route because they're usually competing, in the cosmetology, with the hair or the nails or whatnot. But yes, they could use the e-portfolios for competitions.
I like just the digital citizenship component of that as well. Yeah. That's huge. Thank you.
The e-portfolios, they could be used. I mean, that's a website, right? Oh, and I forgot to mention this. I hope I have just a minute or two. But with the e-portfolios, they don't have to make that live. They can share that with an individual. So if they don't want to have it live, it is a website, so they can make it live. If they're in a salon, I don't know why they wouldn't want it to be live, but when they're interviewing, they can keep that to an individual, to a specific person, which I absolutely love too. So we can create them in class, and then they can start using it for interviews, but then they could also use it for advertisement for themselves, to promote themselves.
Awesome. So I have in the screen share, this link would be the QR for if you want to just provide some feedback for the session. And then the other would be the certificate. I think the value of this is T, I appreciate this. This is going to be a session I'm going to reference back. I've worked with a few cosmetologists, lab instructors. I'm going to reference this because I think there's a really good resource. That'll help them see if someone can do it in, Pickaway Ross. Why can't I do it in my district? So I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And if anyone, feel free to use my contact information, and I can give you Donna's. If someone would like to talk to us about, how we start that or whatnot, I really enjoy it. So feel free to share our contact information to others.
Awesome. Oh, I thank you for your time, both in presenting today as well as preparing it. Because I do think it's, really highlights some promising practices that you folks are doing to benefit all the students.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Appreciate your help.
Don't ever think that. Please don't even think that.
All right, unless we have any other questions, I'll give everyone an extra 15-minute lunch break.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, Tia.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Jody, you're still recording.